Hi, I'm George Carlson with the Maker Barn, and I want to show you a trick I recently learned about there. I've never seen it done on YouTube. However, since there's thousands and thousands of videos on YouTube about 3D printing, there's probably something there very similar to this. Anyway, let me show you the problem. This is a device that we make, that we use in the makerspace to protect the equipment and the users actually, and it's a way of making sure that that the user is authorized to use the equipment. What he would do, he or she would come up and put their card in there, and this talks to a server, and if the server finds that they've been authorized, then it enables equipment. Otherwise, it doesn't. So anyway, you can see that we've got a cover here made of laser cut acrylic, and then the body of the device, and in back we have the electronics, and there's a antenna right there. This is a low frequency RFID card at 125 kilohertz. Anyway, so we used to make the bodies out of corian. This is a white corian. It's nice, heavy, strong stuff. It's the same stuff used for kitchen countertops. And we could find it, pretty cheaply, drops, that sort of thing, and cut it out with a CNC router. Worked pretty well. On the back, there's a recess that's about 30 thousandths deep. That's for the gasket. And then there's a couple other recesses here for the antenna. This was the smaller antenna we used to use, and the electronics. And then on this side, we have the recess that fits our card. The cover's on here, and the card slides in there. Now, I couldn't find any corian. I ran out of corian, and I thought, well, maybe I can 3D print this thing. But it's not easy because we've got recesses on both sides. I really can't print it this way. That wouldn't turn out very well, I don't think. Because we have some other overhangs going on. I really need to print it on one of its faces. Now, if I printed it on this face, it'd really be tricky because we have all this area here that would be recessed just 30 thousandths of an inch, and then these other recesses for the antenna and electronics. So that would be a real problem with the support in there. It would be a mess. If I print it with this down, this is a nice continuous recess. It's pretty wide. It's 1/8 of an inch deep. But if I use the normal supports that we would think about using, we would have lots of little divots and that sort of thing across here. I know there's ways of making it better, but that's still a bit of a problem. Take a long time to print. So I had to come up with another way. Now, when they're making cast iron castings, or castings in general, sand castings, they use a thing called a core. The inside of an engine block, for instance, is hollow. Well, it's hollow because they had a core in place in the mold when they molded it. So I thought, well, we could do the same thing with 3D printing if we're careful. So here we've got, this is one of the units that's been 3D printed, and you can see it's got a larger recess for the new type of antenna. It's got a small recess here, that sort of thing. And then on this side, it has the large recess that's used for the card. Now, the way I did this is that I made a core, and this core, the body itself is made out of PLA. Now the core I made out of PETG. Now since PETG has a much higher melting temperature than PLA, printing PLA over the PETG, it won't stick, or it won't stick very much. And so I could do that. I made this thing the same size as my recess was going to be, and I printed it like this. You notice I have some overlap here. This makes it a lot easier to remove it. Also, you'll see it in the video a little bit later how I hold this down to the bed to make sure it doesn't move. The basic process is just print the area that's going to be on. This is directly on the bed. I print it up to the thickness of this device, or of the depth of this, just before it starts making this area and trying to bridge across here. I pause the machine. Then I place this in, and then finish it up. Couple things. If I print this with this down like this, all right, and it makes a nice smooth surface up here, and it leaves the texture of the textured PEI plate on here, which is nice because it helps cover up the fact that it's a 3D print. And then when I print this thing, it's going to go in there like this, because what I want to do is transfer this texture onto this surface, and that will actually work. But something to keep in mind is that you actually end up flipping this over. So this is symmetrical. It was easy for me. It was symmetrical. But if you have something that you're doing that's not symmetrical, keep that in mind. Now, another thing I found is that if I print across the smooth, in other words, use the smooth part up, it works pretty good all on its own. But if I try the texture side up, it has some problems, because we're actually trying to bridge about 2 1/4 inches, which is a long ways, and the PLA is going to have to stick to this a little bit to stay in place. And so I found I used the glue that Bamboo makes. It's in a little container, like a dauber type container. It's not a glue stick as you normally think of it. And put it on here, and that did the trick. So you can see how, well, it's pretty hard to tell on video probably, but this does have a surface much like the surface off the PEI plate. Turns out very nice. The corners are square, that sort of thing. Let me show you how that's done. I'm going to show you on the computer and actually on the machine itself. So here we are. We got the our piece that's been designed. We've got it in Bamboo Studio now, and I'll show you in the bottom here. This is a recess we're dealing with. I've already made the plug, or whatever you want to call it, the core, and so we're just going to print this part. Just a little point here. When I made the plug, I found that if I made it and shrunk it very slightly, in fact, I used a scaling factor of 0.995, so it's a tiny bit smaller, but it actually seems to fit better into the device when we're having to insert it. But anyway, let's see. Let's go to the preview side, and it's sliced it. I'm going to get rid of this part. So we see that it's sliced. That's fine, but we still need to actually reslice it, putting our pause in there. So to put the pause in there, just simply grab this little slider and move it down. Now you see, at this point we're making the bridge that goes across that gap, but down here at level 16 it makes the last layer. So I'm going to right click that plus mark and do an add pause. What that'll do is it'll cause it to pause at that point. All right, so I'm going to slice it again to generate that. And you can put this back up. You can see how that works. Anyway, let's go ahead and print the plate. And I'll send it to the printer. It'll take about an hour and 6 minutes to print, so obviously I'm not going to make you wait for that long. We'll go take a look at the printer when it pauses. Okay, we're ready to, we've reached the pause point, and I'll put the device in there. Oops. I want the textured side up. Got a little bit of Scotch tape. The Scotch tape helps hold it down, but more importantly, in this particular design, it keeps it from sliding back and forth. So I'm going to just put that there, and then I can just, on the front of the printer, I can actuate the continue. And we'll watch. Let's watch it here for just a minute. And oh, it has to come back up to temperature. See, at this point it's starting to lay the material over the form, I guess you could call that thing. All right, let's see what we've got here. Just took this out of the machine, and you can see the tape here. Having a little bit of material sticking out here is really helpful. Let's see if we can pop that off of there. And looks beautiful. Looks beautiful. Something I meant to show you. This is the Bamboo Labs glue. It's a little different than most of this other stuff. It dabs on. It's liquid, and it's got a dabber. So dauber. It's got a dauber, and it really helps with that first layer, and makes it much cleaner. So anyway, that looks very good. It followed the texture pretty closely here. Got that from the surface there. And there we go. Anyway, hope you can make use of that.